Welcome, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to adjust my screen. Yay. Welcome to Portland Cocktail Week Distance Learning. This session is sponsored by Campari America. My name is Anne Louise. I'm the National Portfolio Brand Ambassador for Campari America. And I am joined today by the amazing, wonderful, talented, brilliant, genius, dad extraordinaire, bar owner extraordinaire, restaurateur, dare we say.
Sure. Yes, let's say.
And expert in crowdfunding and self-funding, Frizell. Hi, Sinjin.
Hi, Anne Louise.
It's so good to have you. So we are going to be covering how Sinjin essentially self-funded or was funded without the use of conventional funding systems, right? Structures. His newest project, which is called Gage and Tollner. It's in Brooklyn. I think everyone should go. It was one of the best meals I've had in such a long time and the most wonderful experiences sitting at a bar. So, okay, so there's a couple things before we dive into talking to Sinjin, a couple things that we ask our fans of this content to do. First, please like us on Facebook. I don't know where the button is, but like us there. Yep, like us there on Facebook. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you're a YouTuber, please subscribe to the channel. Please follow on Instagram. I think we got the Instagram coming up right here at PDXCW. And then also please comment in the chat. Please ask questions. This is definitely a session I know a lot of people feel really passionate about, very curious about, pretty helpless and hopeless about, and might want to know more about. So please ask your questions in. I'm going to be monitoring the questions and I'm going to ask Sinjin as we're going through everything. So with all that out of the way in the first 3 minutes, now, Sinjin, let's dive into what you're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, let's look at a slide there, Dave. Ah! All right. So screw banks. Mean it when I say that.
The best title ever.
Through regulation crowdfunding. Now, a couple of disclaimers here. First of all, I am not a financial advisor. I don't have any training in that. And certainly you should, talk to one of those if you're thinking about making any of these moves. Talk to your accountant. That's always a good place to start. But I do have some things to say about it because I have done regulation crowdfunding twice now, and both campaigns were very successful. I feel like there's a lot of bars and restaurants out there that might be looking for something like this, but don't know what it is yet because it's all very new. Regulation crowdfunding was basically invented around 2016. There was a law that went into it that was created in 2012. Then it really, they were working on the regulation for a few years. In 2015, 2016 is when it actually came through, and you saw companies like Seed Invest and WeFunder start to sprout up to help people kind of navigate the rules of this kind of thing. For a long time, the kind of thing I'm talking about, which is going to your community and asking them to invest in your business, if you were to advertise this on social media, up until 2016, it was illegal to do that. So how do you get the word out? I mean, it would be impossible. But they changed the rules and really freed everything up and sort of created this environment where small businesses can seek what turns out to be major investment from their community, which is great because it softens or it decreases our reliance on financial institutions like this.
It was also, so to me, this was really confusing. And I was like, why couldn't a normal person invest in a bank, or invest in a business? And there was a law that was you had to have a certain amount of money, right, to be able to invest, or you had to have a certain amount of money because the government was essentially trying to protect people from making riskier things. But it was the things they categorized as risky investments were not actually risky investments and actually disabled people who did want to take the risk to also earn that reward. They weren't able to do it. So people fought really hard to be able to do this kind of investing that had not been available.
Yeah, totally. And just to be clear, investing in restaurants is risky. We all know that. But if if you want to invest in your neighborhood restaurant and you want to invest $1,000 that you can afford to lose, like
Right.
now you're able to do that, whereas 10 years ago you were not. Yeah. That's
right. I pulled you off track just to say that's why it was like that there was this law in place that was meant to be protecting investors, but really it was just not allowing them to make those choices for themselves. And to your point, there are risky and there are safe investments, and there are things that are safe to ask people to commit to. Yeah.
What I wanted to say earlier was prior to this new rule, in order to invest, you had to demonstrate a net worth of $2 million, which
is crazy. That's how the rich get richer. It makes me so mad.
I know. Well, they changed everything, so now things have loosened up a little bit, and we can start to do some fun things with finance. Which let's go into it.
Let's get into it. Okay.
So first of all, this is kind of what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to tell you what regulation crowdfunding is and how it differs from the kind of crowdfunding you might know something about already, like Kickstarter or GoFundMe. I'm going to talk about briefly, touch on the difference between equity and debt. I'm going to talk about Gage and Toller as a case study, what we did there and how we raised money for that place. It was through revenue share loans, and I'll explain those. And then I'll explain how I kind of built on the success of Gage and Toller and crowdfunded the relocation of my bar, Fort Defiance, in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And then we're just going to do a little pros and cons, talking about the pros and cons of different types of fundraising. If you're raising through equity or through revenue share loans, and and feel free to ask questions along the way. This is kind of a complicated topic. I cannot guarantee I'll be able to answer all of your questions. As a matter of fact, I'll guarantee that I won't. But I will do my best, and I'll tell you what I know, which is something but not everything, okay? All right, next, who am I? I'm Sinjin Frizell. My first name's written like St. John. It's a weird old English name, and I'm from New Jersey, which explains everything. I started, my first real cocktail bar job was at the Pagan Club in 2007. Opened Fort Defiance in 2009. Just moved it this year, a block down the street. Gage and Toller, we'll get all into that business later. That opened this year. It was supposed to open in March 2020, but ended up, that was not a great month to open the business. We opened in April 2021. I do some writing. I'm a Charles H. Baker Jr. aficionado. If you have any Charles Baker questions, post them in the chat. I play D&D with my 12-year-old son, Chester. I have some D&D books on my shelf right over here. And my favorite cocktail is Sazerac. That's about all you need to know about me. All right, let's get right into it. So regulation crowdfunding, this thing that Anne Louise and I were talking about. Let's talk about the traditional kind of crowdfunding model you may be familiar with already. This is like the Kickstarter, GoFundMe thing. When I went on to GoFundMe to check this out, it was like yesterday was all these businesses in New Jersey and in Queens that had been flooded from the hurricane that just passed through. Typically with GoFundMe, I find it's a lot of kind of like you're looking for relief, or you're looking for to correct something that went wrong. This is talking about businesses. And Kickstarter is typically someone that's got a new idea that wants to put it out in the world. Kickstarter is something I never really understood completely. I mean, it's all based on rewards. Let's get to that in a second. But so with a traditional crowdfunding, it's, the patrons are donating money to your business. The platform keeps 5% plus credit card processing fees. And the rewards are really important. And, there's different tiers of rewards. I find it's almost like, in some cases, it's almost like an online store where you're just paying for something. Like if you donate $25 to a business, you'll get a tote bag. Well, a tote bag retails at $25, so it's really not it's not that big of a deal. And it's kind of a one-time deal. Like with Kickstarter or a GoFundMe, I found is like very much event-based. Like there's something that happened, Whereas Kickstarter is sort of like you want to get something started or you want to do something new. And it's not like you can go back and do it over and over again for the same concept. Whereas with regulation crowdfunding, well, let's talk about that. This is websites like WeFunder, NextSeed, Seed Invest. There are restaurants and bars on all of these platforms. I used WeFunder, and I'm going to talk about it the most, but you should also check out the other two. There are other ones out there too, but these are the three kind of big ones that I see hospitality businesses using. So here's a difference. And here's the main thing is investors that use regulation crowdfunding, they're actually making a financial investment in your business with the hope of earning a return on it. Whereas with a Kickstarter or something, you're going to get that tote back. But this is like an actual financial investment you're making, and you're looking at your money back and then some. So it's a completely different deal. The commission fee is higher, 7.5%. I think across the board. There are rewards. You can set up rewards, but they're less important here because you're looking for money. I mean, you want to get cash back. You don't want to get a tote back. And if successful, you can do it over and over again. And so that's kind of an interesting thing too. I would definitely consider doing it again for Forward to Finance once I start to pay back the investors that I already have. Say if I want to open a new location. And then I have all these people who will be sort of evangelists for me and who will say, you should invest in this because I've already started to earn my money back. I will say that one more thing with the difference here is kind of a softer thing is that in traditional crowdfunding, I feel like people kind of feel like you owe them something, although there's no legal agreement there. It's like sort of like they feel like you should treat them better or you should get them a table in your restaurant or buy them a drink or something. And it becomes this very gray area, especially when you have a lot of people who participate, then you have to keep track of all these people. Whereas with the crowdfunding, the relationship is very clear, it's legally binding, and if there are any questions, the people can go back and look at the contract. For instance, I saw my Uncle Ellis the other day. He said, well, I have to come in soon for my free meal at Gage and Colmer. And I said, Uncle Ellis, there is no free meal. I'm sorry, get your money back. We made a payment to you this month, but we're not giving you free dinner. You can take the money you earn and spend it any way you like. Okay, next slide, please.
Oh, Uncle Ellis.
How are we doing here, Louise? Are you okay with it? You follow me so far?
I'm following you so far. I love the journey of Uncle Ellis. Yeah. I love the boundaries this provides, the understanding, the clarity, and I want to know more.
I love a good boundary, don't you? It's like
I love a good boundary. I mean, yeah, I'm working on it.
It's why we're all bartenders, right? Because there's that bar in between us and the customer.
It's very true. Yeah.
So there are two basic ways to do regulation crowdfunding. You can sell equity of your business, or you can borrow money to take on debt. Those are the two things. And to make it very, very obvious, I'll just run down these bullets. When you do equity, you're selling shares of your company, and your investors are becoming owners of the company in a very real sense. They may not have like voting rights. They may not be able to make decisions for the company, but you can't do anything without them. They're always going to be there. Big pro here is that the investors only get paid back if or when the company profits. And again, you can shape these agreements any way you like, but usually it's something like this. In some agreements, they only get paid if the company sells or if there's an IPO. So it is a cheaper way to raise money. It's equity investment. The cons, it's complicated. There are more filings, and generally it's only used for big raises like $500,000 or more. The relationship is permanent. They're always going to be around. And because these shares, generally speaking, aren't convertible, like you can't sell them, like you're going to be dealing with the same people forever, which is fine. It's just, it's a factor. You want to see how this works? Check out Death and Company. They're raising money on Seed Invest right now. I think they're capping it at like 8 million or something. It's crazy, and it's They have a whole deck up there. It's very interesting. I would actually check it out because it's the biggest profile cocktail-based business that is doing something like this. And just reading through their deck and how they communicate with potential investors, like, it's pretty fascinating. So I would say, take a look at that if you're really interested. And do I understand exactly what their equity raise is all about? I don't, because I didn't do an equity raise. I did the other one. This is debt. This is you borrow money from investors and you set terms to pay it back. It couldn't be easier. It's easy to set up and to explain. And the relationships with investors, like I said, is very finite and clear. Once they get paid off, they are paid off. The con is that the investors get paid periodically regardless of profit. So you could be losing money in a quarter and still have to make payments on that loan, although that's how loans work. You always need to do that anyway, no matter where the loan is from. I'll take questions on any of this stuff as we go along. This is all very dry. It's about to get juicy.
No, I think it's important. I think that we are often we don't talk about money enough. We don't talk about the different elements of money, of finance. I think we're trained to be intimidated by money often, a lot of us. And so I think it's really good, even when it's dry. I think you're doing a great job of it, kind of breaking down what's the difference between raising through equity or raising through debt. And that's a really helpful way to understand as people are looking to get investment in their business. So yeah, it's a little dry because it's designed to be unexciting. Because ideally money is not very exciting. Ideally money is solid and secure and very clear, so that we're all understanding what we're doing and moving forward confidently.
Yeah, too often I see, cocktail businesses that I like, bars and restaurants where there's where the ownership is some mysterious person or organization, and they drew up all the agreements. They're kind of holding all the cards. Their lawyer wrote all the contracts, and it's the operator is sort of the person who's in the dark about it and kind of at their mercy. And that's something we really did not want to happen at Gage & Tollner, for instance. And we'll get to that story. I'll take the next slide.
Great.
Because this is where it gets interesting. Aha! So Gage & Tollner. So this is a place that that my business partner Ben and I found when we were looking for a place. We were looking for a little cocktail bar, something about 1,000 square feet that we could operate with a couple of people. And anyway, long story short, did you know that, Anne Louise? We had just looked at a space that was 1,000 square feet, but it was raining that day. This is April 2017. And water was coming down through the ceiling of the space. And we were like, you know what? This one's not going to work. And the real estate agent was like, I have something else around. It's not what you're looking for. I have something else around the corner I want to show you. And then she brought us around the corner, and we're walking towards the front door. And I'm like, is she bringing us into Gage & Tollner? This is crazy, because it was a famous restaurant. It's a landmarked building, inside and out, landmarked interior, third landmarked interior in New York City. Yeah, established 1879, closed in 2004. Later became a TGI Fridays and a Arby's. And look at that interior. You can see it down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen there. It still looks like that. I think that's the only picture of it. Oh, but there might be none. Anyway, it's absolutely gorgeous. And it was a mystery as to why no one else had jumped on this. Still is. But anyway, we decided that we needed between $1.5 and $2 million to do this whole project. And so here, Anne Louise, is we used a mix of things here. So we wanted to crowdfund about $500,000, and then we thought the excitement from that crowdfunding and hopefully the press that we were able to generate would attract some buzz to the project, and the equity investors who we were trying to get them to invest $32,000 a piece. We were hoping that excitement would kind of bring them in and be kind of a proof of concept. Indeed, the world's most beautiful Arby's. I had heard that before. It was absolutely gorgeous in there. Still is.
Well, fun fact, they couldn't touch the walls. And so they built a box inside this restaurant and then put Arby's inside of that box.
Yeah.
So when St. John went to look at the box was down at that point, or they had taken it down, or no?
Oh yeah. So when we walked in there for the first time, it was the first time that I'd seen the walls of the restaurant, seen those arched mirrors that repeat all the way down. It had been cleaned out for the first time, and it was completely vacant. Yeah.
Wild. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway,
Go on.
yeah.
So okay, so you're gonna use this energy, this crowdfunding energy, to then also bring in equity investors. So the crowdfunding was going to be debt fundraising.
That's right.
And then you're going to use that to bring in the people who had like big chunks of money that were going to support and become like partners in this business with you.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's it. All right, next slide, please.
I'm learning as I go. This is good. Okay.
Got it. Oh,
me about Scrooge McDuck.
So yeah. So to backtrack a little bit, when we found this space, I mean, we knew it was going to cost that much money, and we were like, the crowdfunding / equity investor thing, the situation that we came up with ultimately is not where we started. By the way, we started with, well, Deja told her somebody's going to want to do this, and we got introduced to some very, very wealthy people through a community organization called the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. It's a nonprofit, and on its board are all these people that sit on all these other boards, and it's like the richest people in Brooklyn. So, and they look like this, by the way, just like that. That's how they would show up holding a bag of money.
Yeah, and a top hat and those little glasses.
Yeah, little red spats, always with the spats. So, yeah, we tried to do it the old-fashioned way. We just went around asking rich people for money. We made a deck. We had a whole song and dance, and couldn't get anybody on board. Couldn't get anybody. We came close with a couple of young venture capitalists, one of whom was responsible for Sir Kensington's ketchup. He's a ketchup.
Oh, so he actually looked like this. You weren't joking.
Very nice guy. Very nice guy who I haven't seen since we opened. But anyway, all these guys, they love to talk. They love to have lunch. And it's like they have all the time in the world to spend talking to you about your project. And then at the end of the day, they don't write a check.
Right.
So it was apparent to us that we didn't know anyone who would give us $500,000, but we might know 500 people who would give us $1,000 each. And that's when we started to look into this regulation crowdfunding. That's when I put the whole idea together. Okay, next slide. So we did it through WeFunder. We launched. Can I see the next slide, actually?
Oh my God. No, I just really want to look at that photo some more. That was great. Man, what a photo. That's
my partner, Ben, and Sohee Kim, my other partner, in the middle. They're fantastic. I love them. So we put together this whole thing. We made a video, we did a photo shoot, we did a new deck, we did new financial projections. We got onto WeFunder, we filed what's called a Form C with the SEC, and the platform helps you with all that. They make it very easy, and started this crowdfunding campaign. And so here's the interesting thing. Let's talk about revenue share loans. We'll go to the next slide. So here's the thing about these loans is you get to set all the terms. You're borrowing the money, but instead of like a bank where they look at you and size you up and then they tell you what the terms are, this is the opposite. So you get to decide everything. How much you're borrowing, how much you're paying back, and how often you're going to pay them. So it's really completely up to you. There's all sorts of dials you can use to kind of, fix it exactly where you want it. Now, why wouldn't you just set everything to the lowest thing, the lowest return on investment, the longest, the lowest percentage of your revenue devoted to the loan? Because then your investment becomes less interesting to people and less attractive to people that aren't, already emotionally invested in you and your business. Because you need those people, but you also need strangers. You'll probably need to get the people that you don't know, who have never heard of your business, who may have heard of your business but haven't been there yet. I think most of our investment, probably 90%, came from people who were new to the WeFunder platform, but 10% of it came from people that were honestly like just browsing on the platform, looking for cool projects to back. People I have never met and have never heard from, but they just invested in it. So any questions on this? This is a little bit of the tricky part. This part had to be explained to me a few times. So there is no interest with these loans, but you do promise to pay back a multiple of the loan. So I think as low as you can go is 1.2 or 1.25. So that means if you borrow $100,000, you're paying back $125,000.
Well, let's say if I'm borrowing $100.
$100.
So if I give you $100, you set the terms, right? So you say, Anne Louise, is it like in a term and time, or like when I hit a certain amount of revenue, I'll be able to do this?
No. Well, you can set up like a delay. So from the time you take the loan to the time you start to pay it back, you can pad that by 6 months or something. And then you take a percentage of your revenue and you give it to your investors every quarter, say. That's what we do every quarter. You could do it, I think you could do it annually. I think you could do it monthly. But we do it every quarter. So
and this is until you pay it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the multiple. So it's like, so you pay it back. So you would get $125. So I'm done paying you back when you've got your $125.
$125. So if I give you $100 and then every like quarter you're doing these repayments and you're like, here's $20, here's $20, or here's 25, here's 25, here's 25. And then when I hit $125, you stop giving me money.
Yep, that's it.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, the good news here is that if there's like say you have to shut down for, I don't know, a pandemic, for instance, at that point, when you don't have any revenue, you don't have to make any payments. So that's really cool.
Right.
Because, if it was a traditional loan with a bank or another kind of financial institution, we would have just been paying the whole year that we were.
Still be on the hook for all that money.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been really bad. But here, the multiple is fixed. The amount of money that I'm paying back is fixed. And the rate at which I pay it back is tied to the revenue of the restaurant. So.
Amazing. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take the next slide.
Okay. And a tote bag. I got a tote bag. I should have it. I have it. It's really great. Okay.
Yeah. What were the rewards? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. So here's the terms that we did for Gage and Tollner. Oh, that's Tom and Ed Dewey in that photograph, by the way, dressed up in Victorian gear for disguising themselves as Gage and Tollner for the 75th anniversary of the restaurant.
That's amazing.
54. Yeah, they're really cute. So, all right. So we did. If you invest early, the first $400,000 of investment, we gave you 1.5 times your money. It's pretty good. And then a 1.25 for all the investors who came after. We're taking 4% of our revenue and dedicating it to paying down this loan. It's a lot, but we were feeling really confident. And we set the cap of investment at $1 million. We didn't want that much of this investment. I don't know why we chose $1 million. But we were looking for a round
number. Yeah.
Next slide. Next, please. There we are. Okay. So how did we do it? It was a production, man. Running one of these campaigns is really like a part-time job. It takes a lot of energy. If you're doing it right, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. You get what you need. We made a video. That was the first thing. That all the websites want you to either upload a PowerPoint deck or a video or both. So for Gage and Tollner, we did a great video. We hosted weekly open houses, just like hanging out in the space every Sunday at a certain time. and let everyone know that we were doing it. We had a mailing list. We put it on social. We did Facebook Live events, tons of social media, just like bombarding people with information. Press coverage. This was the biggest part of the campaign, is that we pitched this story to the Times, and then they were interested. The story was about, Gage & Toller, this historic restaurant, but it was also about us and about the way we were doing it, which was newsworthy. Because, like I said, this kind of crowdfunding is still really new, and you still have to explain it to people. And your local news outlet may find it pretty exciting that you're, doing this on your own. Especially, depends on how you pitch it. But it's a better story than if you're getting traditional investment. If you're getting a loan from a bank or something, there is no story there. If you are engaging with the community and you're trying to get everybody on board, that's a story.
I love that you did these open houses. I thought that was really interesting.
That was. We did a couple of Facebook Live events from the open houses as well. Talking about different elements of the decor, or showing off different documents that we had. And yeah, it was great. Like, the open houses were really great. I don't know what the conversion rate there was, like how many people who came by, came inside, invested. But I know that we got a few. And I would literally stand out on the street and be like, "Come on in, the Gage & Toller, come on in." I mean, it was nuts. But I really wanted this to work. So you might have to do stuff like that. And there's a whole art and science to running these crowdfunding campaigns, which we'll touch on at the very end. But really, it's like a whole seminar on its own. All right, next slide, please.
Okay, wait. We had a question really quick.
What you got?
Is the repayment percentage out of your gross or net revenue?
Net. So it's your net revenue, meaning your revenue minus sales tax. That's what I mean. So I guess they call that gross. No, they don't call it gross. They call it net. So okay. That's what it is. And
keep going.
Yeah, and you do want to have financial documents available to show your investors, just in case anyone asks. I always ask my accountant to prepare a P&L every month and a quarterly one, just so people can see exactly what we're doing.
And then another question was, pandemic issues aside, what was your projected repayment timeline when you initiated the raise? How long do you think it would take to repay your investors before the pandemic? Yeah, that's
a great question, and probably the first question that your investors will ask. So according to our projections, we were thinking it would take about 3.5 years, and we made a little spreadsheet to sort of show our projected income, and then how the payments would increase over time, and then when the highlighted the cell that was like the one where it's like, you're done, you got paid back. As it is now, our revenues are higher than we expected, and I think we'll probably get it done in less than 2 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then the last question is for this video process and doing, getting awareness. What do you need to make these kinds of videos? What is the best way to reach out to the press about fundraising in regards to your fundraising videos?
Well, yeah. So what do you need to make these kinds of videos? Again, like, not an expert there. I'm sure, there are a lot of people on this call that are probably a lot more experienced in that sort of thing than I am. I mean, I've seen everything on these sites, from like handheld cell phone videos to like very professional, like movie trailers, essentially. So it kind of, ranges the gamut there. What we did is we have a neighbor who lives in Red Hook, who is a commercial filmmaker, and like was in between jobs and just offered to help us out in return for a tab at Fort Defiance and the Good Fork, which is my partner's place down in Red Hook. And that's what we did. And honestly, there are filmmakers in your town who will make a short film for Bartender. They exist.
That's amazing. And also, you've built equity in your community, and people want to support you.
Absolutely. And the best way to reach out to press, again, like kind of a whole seminar on its own. I have done a lot of writing in the past, so I know a lot of these editors and stuff, and can kind of reach out to them directly. I know that's kind of cheating, but you know, it is what it is. I would say,
you know, like,
I mean, you start to build your network by, you know, anytime a reporter calls your restaurant or bar or emails you, you put them in a database, you get their name and number, and then anytime you're doing anything, you just reach out to them and let them know. I mean, that's a really good way to get started. So if anyone's ever written about you, write to them and say, hey, we're doing this thing, we're starting this, you know, regulation fundraising. It's not a Kickstarter, it's different. Let me explain to you sometime. And that person will say, either I'm not interested, or I am interested, or I know who to refer you to. You want to talk to the guy in the business section, or you want to talk to the local section, or whatever it is. So, I mean, there's definitely ways to do it. And depending on, it's, I mean, you know, PR, to me, it's, if you're doing it right, it's all about these personal relationships. There's no email blast out there that's going to really work. It's like phone calls and things to individual people.
A lot of hand touch. I mean, I will say, how do I say this the right way? Like, I think that you put more of a personal touch on what you do more than anyone else I've ever met. That like you take the time and you have the energy and you really put in the effort to do things in a very personal way. Because I see like so much of your life is basically like a giant art project, right? Like everything you're doing is like, and you love it and you're passionate about it. But it is a thing to tell everybody that like St. John worked very hard and his business partners worked very hard. And this takes a lot of like personal time and effort to do this. But then you do have this great reward and you have a whole community of people that feel really connected to the thing you just did because like they got a personal phone call.
Yeah, I should, you know, preface all this with saying from the time that we walked into the vacant space on Fulton Street to when we opened, it was 4 years. Now it was supposed to be 3 because of the pandemic. It was 4, but 3 years, it's still a long time. And it was a hard 3 years because I'm running Fort Defiance. In the meantime, spending all of my extra time working on this Gage and Tolner project. People thought I was crazy. People literally thought I lost my mind. My girlfriend maybe being one of them, maybe being one.
I was a little worried for a minute. I was like, oh God, this is so, but you had the faith of a producer, right? The producer's job is to not let the thing fall apart.
Yeah, I really felt like this is going to work. And now, you know, everything is good, knock on wood. But it does take a long time. And by the way, you know, they say this, whenever you start to talk about raising money for anything, get used to hearing no. Like, you know, we ended up with 40 equity investors, or 40. But we sent out personalized decks to 300 plus investors.
It's actually that's a good return. That's actually really good. 40 out of 300 is pretty good.
But those 260 investors that didn't come in, it's like that. I put the same amount of time into them as I did to everybody else.
Yeah,
it's a lot, man. It's a lot. It takes a lot. But and you hear no all the time, and then you start to hear yes. It starts to feel good. Anyway, and then there's an arc to it. I mean, we could talk about this later, but it's like, especially when you're setting up a crowdfunding campaign, you need to sort of front load that first week, especially the first day. So you get all your close friends and family, and you say, I don't care how much you put into this, but this is the day you need to do it.
Because you need to look like, right, you need to have that momentum.
You need to do it on day one. And so there's a progression. You start off really high, day one, you get a lot of interest, and then it just goes like this. And then you hit this valley where you're like, oh my God, it's stalled. What do I do? It's never going to come back. Why did I do this in the first place? I look like a fool. And then it's wrapping up at the end, and you're like, there's 3 weeks left to invest, get on board. And then you start hitting people with daily emails and on social media every day. You're making phone calls, you're talking, and then it goes up, and then you go. And that's the way, apparently, it always goes. It's the way that it worked at Gage and Toller.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, okay. I'll take a slide.
Take a slide for 200. What do we got? Or not?
I don't even know what the next slide is. I need my slides to help me tell my story. Dave.
Dave, come on. We need our slides.
Should I talk about how crazy? Oh, he's laggy. Okay. Should I talk about how crazy everyone thought I was? Everyone thought I was really crazy.
No. I mean, okay. And also for anyone listening, Sinjin and I are very good friends, and Sinjin's girlfriend and I are very, very good friends. And so I got like a very front row seat to this whole process from the day, I think it was like the day after you walked into that space. I've been hearing about this project. Yeah. And so, yeah. And it is scary. It's scary to do this kind of thing, to jump into it. And I think because you approach this as something that you were building for the community, and you were building as something that you really wanted to give, at least from where I was standing, as like an art installation, reviving this building, and you were being in service, that kept you so motivated. Whereas I think if you were like, we're going to make $1 million and that's the goal, that would have been different. But you were really passionate about this thing, this work you wanted to do in the world. And so it kept you fed and fueled through all of the crazy ups and downs that come with restoring a historical landmark and then opening a restaurant during a pandemic.
Oh yeah, I need the next one, Dave. So, and I will, yeah, here it is. Absolutely right about that. That there's like it really was about, the way I talk about it is, Gage and Toller is like, it's not just not gentrification or not replacing something old with something new. It was the opposite of that. It was bringing this thing from the past back into existence, and pretty much the way it was back then. It was almost like if in Times Square suddenly there was like a primeval forest just grew out of the center of the street. It was like this thing that was time going in reverse. I think that it was an appealing concept to a lot of people because in New York especially, things change so quickly and cities change the way they look, and the city you grow up in, by the time you're 15, it looks completely different. Yeah. And it makes people anxious because there are, there's nothing to go home to. There's no permanence. There's, and I think that this was like, it was really nice, emotionally for people to experience this thing where this thing from the past comes back into existence. People tell me, we have people in the restaurant every day that were there, in the 1980s when Edna Lewis was cooking there, or in the 90s, celebrating weddings and birthdays and anniversaries. Anyways, fabulous. But you have that community element. But in this kind of thing, Anne Louise, you also, on the other hand, you have the finances, and it's the 1-2 punch. It's like, yes, this is good for the community, and it's going to be a great place to hang out, and we're going to do good work in the neighborhood, and boom, you're going to make money.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. I mean, you weren't starting a Boys and Girls Club, like.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's like, it's really, it's about doing both those things. And for some people, the community appeal is, the one that gets them. For some people, it's the money. And for a lot of people, it's both.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, so we were successful raising money for Gage and Toller. Oh, and by the way, we ended up going over budget and having to take an SBA loan as well. So we did everything. We got equity investment, we got a revenue share loan, and we got a loan from the SBA. And did we talk to Chase about loans? Yeah, pretty much throughout this process. And we were just never good enough for them.
Their loss.
Yeah.
Fort Defiance.
Oh yeah, so Fort Defiance. Okay, so in this story, Fort Defiance is my bar. We opened in 2009 in a very small community in Brooklyn called Red Hook, and we were offered a space during the pandemic. We were offered a space a block away that was twice the size of our existing space, and I had lots of problems at the existing space, including a landlord. And a floor that was kind of sagging, joists that needed to be replaced. I either needed to invest $100,000 in that building or invest in a new building where everything was going to be built from scratch. And so we decided to move. $100,000 did not cover our entire relocation, but it was a big chunk. And I kind of picked that number almost at random. I figured it was about half of what we would need. And
how about 100,000?
And I had some government aid coming in the form of, we didn't get the RRF, but we did get the
PPP.
The PPP and the ERC. So I knew I had some cash coming in. I was like, if I can kind of divert some of that to this, and then, that I need about 100,000 more. Again, banks didn't want to talk to us. Come on. It's like you've already got the, PPP 1 and 2 on your books. What are they going to do? You're on paper, you're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. No bank is going to talk to you. Go ahead and talk to them. Try to talk to them. You're going to get the same result. So we decided to do a revenue share loan again, except this time turn the dials way down because A, I didn't need as much money. B, I already had a huge mailing list, a few thousand followers on social, 12 years of goodwill in the neighborhood. And I knew that we would be able to get there. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how long was it going to take. So I dialed all the dials way down, as low as they go. 1.25x return, a 2.5% revenue share, very manageable for a smaller business. And I had this multi-week plan for how we were going to go about the launch, what we were going to do for that middle slump, and then how we were going to close it out at the end. I had many media things ready to go. I had social media posts. We're going to do this live thing. We're going to do this video.
Yeah, and then you just reached your goal.
3 days. So we didn't even do a video for this. We didn't even do a video. So it was like I made a deck. You can see the first page of it here. It's like it was like kind of vague on numbers. The Gage and Tollner deck that I made is like it's very complete. Like it answers every question. With Fort Defiance, we didn't include any financial projections. We didn't include a timetable to be paid off, really. There was a lot of stuff that we left out. We were just like, here's what we want to do. We want to build a bakery in the new space. We're going to keep the store in the front. We're going to have the bar, and we're going to have outdoor seating. We're going to have bagels,
Yeah, bagels.
Bagels. And we have cute people on our staff wearing masks, making little heart things on the cover. And listen, I couldn't believe it either. 3 days later, I was like, I literally couldn't believe it. I literally had weeks of strategy plan.
You had 10 years of equity, like social goodwill built. People love your bar. They're so excited for what you did during the pandemic and how you pivoted to being a general store. Like, I mean, anyone who lived in that neighborhood is going to want to support you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's pretty funny though that you had all this stuff planned and everyone's like, no, we want you to, like, you're also, if no one's been to Red Hook, there's nothing there. So it made sense for them to invest because they need you to stay open because there's literally nothing else. So
it's true, yeah. But this is if we just did the Gage and Tollner thing, I swear you and I would not be talking right now. But it was this one that really turned me on. It was like, wait, this is really exciting. Like, if you have an existing business and you want to say do an expansion, maybe you want to, take over the space next door, you want to open a new location, like that's where this can be really, really helpful. And I don't think there are some projects you can fund completely with these revenue share loans. However, your accountant's going to tell you that it's expensive money and you should only do a portion of it and try to get the rest in some other way, either by selling equity through traditional equity investment or getting a low interest loan. I mean, look, the interest rates now are much lower than they were when we were looking for money for Gage and Tollner. So it's kind of a different game. But it is a very valuable tool in your kit, though, and I would not let it drop. And let me go to the slide again, and let's go to the next one. I feel like I talk about the advantages. Okay. Yeah.
There was a question. I have a question for you really quick.
Go ahead.
Is there any difference in the way you organize your company, LLC, S Corp, proprietorship, et cetera, when using these forms of fundraising?
No, I mean, I only use LLCs. And I think that's probably the same with a lot of you. And LLCs are they're built to do this. So
okay. So LLC is
the way that I did it. Yeah. Again, not a financial advisor, not an accountant, but that's the way we did it. And there we go.
Financial advice. Yeah.
But your accountant is should be a great resource if they are not getting the accountant. Okay, pros and cons. Okay, here's the big pro, right? Your customers become invested in your financial success. Now think about this. This is like the biggest thing that happened is that we have investors who come in. We have people who support the business who come in and at Gage and Toller and don't complain about the prices, and they don't at For Defiance either. They get it. Like they're in some way they make a living themselves. They understand like that we need to make money to pay them back. And if they're an investor, they come in, and the more common thing might be like you're not charging enough for this. Like you need to charge more. But it's like, are they intrusive in your business? I have not found them to be at all. I've found them to be very charming and delightful. And whereas a big equity investor, if you were dealing with one big whale, the person would be on your back all the time. It would be miserable. Instead, you have a ton of little fish, and they're always around, and they're always like rooting for you. They will give you their business. They will choose to go to your restaurant on a Friday night instead of the one down the street because they invested in it. They'll tell people that they're owners. They will say that. It's not true, but they will say that because they get confused. They are investors in your business and they want to support you. And that's like really the best. It's the best. Like having these people around, I was a little bit worried, honestly, that they were going to be a pain in the neck or ask for extra things. And so far, that's not been my experience. Like I said, Uncle Ellis, we have a contract, Uncle Ellis. Okay, so then the second thing is that you can generate some press for your business. We talked about that earlier. It is really a thing, and reporters really do like this angle. Local TV would like this angle, local radio. And the loan payment amounts track your sales, and they decrease when your sales decrease. You can't say that about bank loans, and that's also a pretty big advantage. Cons, again, generally it's a little more expensive than a low interest loan, not more expensive than a high interest loan. So usually what we figured our rate was, I don't have this number off the top of my head, but we figured it between 8 and 9%, which is not that bad for a loan. And then, yeah, it takes time and effort to do it properly. It really does. And the more time you invest in it, the better you're going to do. I would recommend, oh, here. I still have this book. It was very useful to me. Since then, Alex has become a friend, and actually her husband became our graphic designer.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. Anyway, great book. Really, really useful. Lots of great ideas. And again, she lays it all out. That countdown to when you launch your crowdfunding campaign, everything you do in the countdown from 3 months out to the day before, she lays it all out for you. It's very interesting. And then how you run your campaign while it's running. Oh, and here's a big con for some people, although, like Anne Louise said, I live my life like an art project, and I'm open about a lot of things that a lot of people aren't open about, including the financials of my business. Now, For Defiance has not always made money, and it was a risk, I guess, putting that out there. But who cares? There are a lot of businesses out there that don't make money. Again, I'd refer you to the Death & Co. Launch. Go ahead and dig in there all on your own. It's very interesting, like I said. But it's like, what is someone going to judge you because you lost money in 2018? Who cares? It doesn't make a difference. Lots of businesses do that. And anyway, these people are not getting paid back by profit, like an equity investor would, again, they're getting a share of the revenue right off the top. They're taking the cream right off the top there. So as long as you can generate revenue, your investors will get paid back. So yeah, that's a con for some people. For me, I didn't care. And I don't know. I think I'm getting close to wrapping up. What's the next slide?
Let's see.
Oh, here's a big thing. All right, Scrooge McDuck is back. If you use WeFunder, you use my referral code. Yeah, screenshot those people. Or you can just email me. There's my email address, and I can refer you to people at WeFunder. If you use WeFunder, the other ones are good too. You should check those out as well. They're listed, on one of the early slides. You will save $2,500 on the commission that WeFunder takes from the raise, and I will invest $500 in your project.
It's a good deal.
It's a good deal. I'm like Mark Cuban over here.
Yeah, it seems no downside here.
Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, and let me know. Why don't you email me if you do that, just so I know you're on my radar and your project's on my radar, because I would like to follow this kind of thing up. And if anyone actually starts to do this after seeing this seminar, I would take great interest in that, and do my best to promote your project.
Here's a question that's come up. A friend of mine is watching today, I know, and he is starting. It's not a restaurant. It's a different kind of business. Do you know people that have had success in other kinds of businesses that aren't restaurants, but maybe something else? Yeah, I mean, if you start to browse on these sites, you literally see everything from from a movie that someone is trying to get made to like a pharmaceutical company. There's lots of software companies on there. There's there's lots of brick and mortar stuff. There's lots of digital only stuff. It runs the gamut. Restaurants are a small minority of businesses that invest that run on these platforms. Other businesses that are like native tech firms, like they were obviously the first ones. So you see a lot of app companies and stuff like this. Restaurants and bars really kind of late to the game here, and that's why try to get the word out. And I'll also say that WeFunder says that 90% of their raises are not the revenue share loan raises that I spoke about earlier. 90% are equity raises, where they're selling stock in the company or shares in the company. And a lot of them are for much, they're trying to raise a lot more. Yes, so, millions of dollars.
Just an interesting fact. I feel like the revenue share for smaller restaurants or for smaller businesses like mine work best. But again, the results may vary.
Cool. Are there any other questions from our audience today joining in on Facebook, on YouTube? If anyone is wondering anything else, please throw it in the questions and we will answer it. That was all my questions. I had so much fun doing this with you today, Sinjin. And we are popping your all of his social handles. So we have Sinjin at Sinjin Frizell. We have Gage and Tollner. We have, here we go, Fort Defiance, Brooklyn. If you happen to be in New York, please go check out his spots. Go enjoy the magic of the world that Sinjin creates. And it looks like we don't have any other questions. So if you've enjoyed this class, please hit the like or love button and show some love in the comments. It helps us boost the algorithm, get more people to see this. If you want to see more Portland Cocktail Week classes like this one, follow Portland Cocktail Week on Facebook and on YouTube. And I think those are popping up here. So if this is your first session and you want to learn more, we have a whole slew, a whole catalog of classes that we've hosted over the last year and a half since this program started. And they're also at Portland PDXCW on Instagram, so you can find out what's happening next. You can also follow the Campari community. That's the program I run at Campari Community. We have a mailing list. So if you want to sign up for the mailing list and find out everything we're doing, otherwise follow along with us on Instagram. And we're always posting all the classes and events, programs, and things that anyone can join to learn about our wonderful world at Campari America. Sinjin, anything else you want to say in closing?
Good luck out there, people. You know, getting a big project off the ground takes a long time, but you know, anything that's worth doing, you know, takes a lot of time and effort. So hang in there, and if you need any advice or anything, just hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really loved learning from you today. I loved getting to see you. And we'll hopefully get to do another session. Maybe we'll talk about PR next time.
That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Great to see you too, Anne Louise. I had a blast.